This is my tier list for modern 4-inch Sonic Jakks Pacific figures. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail than a standard tier list and try to be as objective as possible by breaking things down into 5 categories. That's going to be the posability of the figure, how much it can stand on its own, the accessory that it comes with, novelty, which means if it's an uncommon character or an uncommon shape to the toy, and favor just means kind of how much I like the character. I'm doing this as kind of a trial run practice for when I do my own custom tier list at the end of the year, but I want to finish Cyclone, Squid, and Black Doom before I do that tier list. Subscribe so you don't miss that. Let's get started. My gut feeling is that Vector will be kind of up high in the list. I love the figure, but I'm not really attached to the character itself as I never really played Sonic Heroes as a kid. He's got a lot of good points of articulation and the joints stay really well. I really like how they feel pretty solid, they have a good click to them. Doesn't feel like you're gonna break this figure. I also like the little detail of the tail rotating on the back. You can get some cool running poses. I really like the silhouette of this and kind of the foreshortening that you can get in the photography with his big hands. I tried some other poses like hands behind his back and it works out medium. I love his chain and his headphones too. It really adds to the detail of the character. Standability, pretty good. I really like the big bulky figures like this. The accessory is so-so. I don't mind it, I don't hate it. So for the pose, yeah, you can get some fair poses. I'm going to give that a C. Standability, A. He stood pretty easily. Wasn't that big of a fan of the accessory. Novelty is S. I love that they made this figure. And favor, just C because I didn't really grow up with this character. That brings us to a total of C. I think that's a little bit lower than what I would have put if I was making this tier list just off the top of my head. You'll see some of that at the end of the video. Maybe A tier, probably B tier. But he ends up in C for now. Espio. Another character that I didn't really grow up with necessarily. I think he's going to be kind of low. I'm not a huge fan of this shade of pink. And I don't really like the heart shape on his chest. I think that's just what I don't like about the design of the character. It looks accurate to what he looks like in the game. He has some posability issues in that these hands and cuffs don't really rotate. I don't know if that's all figures or just the one that I have. I didn't want to pull too hard because it really felt like I was going to break it if I put too much force. The head's a little loose too. I'm not a fan of that construction. And the tail feels like I might break it off if I'm not careful with it. Posability, you can only really do a lot with his legs, and like a lot of the Sonic figures, I have some troubles getting him to stand. And here he is standing, kind of looking to the side. Passable. I do like this yellow version of this. It's a little bit different than the usual. I have plenty of blue ones. Posability, I'm just not going to rate that highly. It took a little while to get him to stand, but he did after all was said and done. The accessory is alright. Novelty, yeah, he's not a common character. But favor, I just didn't really grow up with him, so. He's gonna end up as a E. And I think that's about where I would have put him if I was doing this list just by gut feeling. So I think that's a good place for him. Infinite. Oh man, I would love to place this up high, but I know that there's going to be some issues with this. Posability, he's just so cool with his hair coming out the back that you can't really turn his head unless you really move his tail out of the way. The hands rotate, they're okay. The legs feel pretty sturdy. They might be the same thickness as a Sonic, but something about this one just feels good that I can get him in good positions. He gets some good running poses too. He has such a good silhouette with the ears on his mask and the hair coming out the back. I'm surprised I haven't really done any toy photography with him. I really should. He's a little bit tough to get to stand. I have to really rotate his feet to try to get him in the right position and lean his body forward. So that's not going to score well in this list. As far as the accessory goes, I love the Phantom Ruby. I really like the emeralds and the soul gems, and this just goes perfectly with them, even if it's a bit big. Pose-wise, I didn't get much out of it. It gets an E. Standability was pretty bad. The accessory, of course, gets an A. Novelty, I love the sculpt of it. I love the silhouette. That's great. And favor-wise, I love Infinite. And that spells out Ifasa. This ends up as a B. I feel like that might be a little bit low for my gut. I might have placed him a bit higher. Big. I'm so excited for this figure. And by the way, I only have this one where I have my custom parts attached to it. So you're going to see me review it with his Sonic Adventure gear. The nature of him being so big and novel is that he doesn't have a ton of posability. He actually did pretty well on his feet. It feels good to bend the top of his feet, and then he has that nice little rotation of his sandal. But overall, you can't do a ton of good poses with him, but that's kind of expected with the shape of that. So even though he's one of my favorite figures, he's probably going to get a ding for posability. Obviously, he stands well. He has that nice big base. He doesn't come with a great accessory, just some rings. He could have come with Froggy. So, posability, that's kind of low, at an E. He stands just fine though. His accessories are gonna get real bad because of what could have been. The novelty though is an S, and for me, favor, S. And that spells out S of... Let's see what his overall score is gonna be. Ooh, a B. I would not have placed him in B, just doing this off my gut. He would have been S tier for sure. I never played Sonic Riders, so Jet doesn't stand out as nostalgia for me, but he is just so cool. You see I've got him hot glued to the board right now because I did that for toy photography, but he poses pretty well. He sticks on that board well, and he has a great silhouette with his tails and the back feathers on his head. One of my favorite toy photography shots is this one where he's blowing up all the badniks. And here's how I created it. That fire was just cotton balls glued together with some baling wire. And you can see I hot glued all this baling wire to keep all the figures up in the air. It just turned out to be an amazing shot, one of my favorites. The tail feels a little bit flimsy, but the board is so cool. Obviously, that's going to be a high accessory ranking. I bet he's going to rank pretty high. Standability, I don't want to take him off this board, but I know that he stands okay. So, for pose, he's going to get a B. Very good. Standability, I give him a B. Accessory, though. Oh, I love it. I love this board. It's so cool. The novelty of it, he's unique. I love it. And favor, B. I like its design, even though I didn't really play the game. So overall, that comes out to an A. I think that may have been where I ranked him if I was doing this by my gut, so I think that's a good place for him. The heavies aren't necessarily my favorite characters, but I love how unique it is. It's kind of different from the standard Sonic figure, where they have kind of the small body and the long, spindly legs and arms. I appreciate the new molding and the look of him and the soft cape. His posability is a bit rough. You can kind of get him into a position where he's kind of Captain Morganing, but where his pose really gets better is when you add the accessory. He looks very regal, very cool, and he can kind of pose holding it up, looking like he's the ruler of these badniks. I love the crystal look. I don't know what kind of plastic it is that they get that kind of refraction of the light through it, but it just really looks like glass, so that's going to definitely score high in my detailed score. Standability, no problem. There he is, looking mad. So for the pose, it's going to be an A. He can get some cool poses once he has his staff. Standability just fine. The accessory is amazing. The novelty's pretty high with an S. And favor, yeah, I like him. I don't hate him. A Sazb. And that's going to end up as a A. I think that's a pretty good spot for him. Heavy Gunner. I feel a lot of the same ways about this in its uniqueness. I'm glad that they made these molds for the bodies and the heads, so you have kind of a different silhouetted character compared to a lot of the other Sonic figures. But I'm just not into this design. He's got a cool jetpack, and his posability could be better, but for some reason, I couldn't move his hips. Maybe my toy was just defective. I didn't want to put too much pressure on it. The gun's pretty cool. It feels light, but it needs to be light because it's so big, but it just isn't really a pleasing accessory to me. He stands fine, just like Heavy King. But he's not one of my favorite figures. Pose, he gets E. Standability, yeah, it was fine. The accessory, I'm not a huge fan of, but it is unique. The novelty of it is high, but my favor is just not that high. E-Buff. And he ends up with a C. But honestly, I probably, with my gut feeling, would have placed him in D. The Egg Robo. I really don't like the design of this guy. I know a lot of people are fans, but it has a lot of the same posability issues as the others. And I'm just so turned off by the design that this isn't going to rank very high. He has all the cool benefits of the others, that he's unique, he's novel, he's got a cool accessory, but it doesn't feel good in his hand. Again, because it has to be light, because it's so big. I'm just overall not a fan of this, and it's really hard to get him posed with his arm up. There's not enough friction in his shoulder there. So for pose, it's going to be an E. Standability, it's going to be low because he can't stand with his arm up. The accessory I'm not a fan of. The novelty is high, but my favor is low. Ekdaf. And that all leads to an E. Yeah, I think he deserves that E. Metal Sonic 3.0. Okay guys, I am not the biggest fan of Metal Sonic's design. I like the thicker characters. Things that are too spindly feel a little bit too fragile to me. And the fact that his arm is kind of in that position to start with means it's going to affect his posability. I do love the lines on his design, and I kind of like the head of Metal Sonic, but I'm just not a fan of the body. He stands alright. The Red Star Ring, it's cool, kind of unique, but it's not the highest in my rankings. The posability is going to be low, but standability is high. His accessory is okay, middle of the road. He's got a novel design, but I don't like the spindliness of it. And again, I'm just not a huge fan of Metal Sonic's design in the first place. So that's all going to end up as a C. And I think that's a good place for him. Alright, up next is regular Metal Sonic. So the only Metal Sonic I have is the one that I converted into Reaper Metal Sonic. And I do quite like Reaper Metal Sonic. I think the cape being on his back takes away some of the spindliness that I don't like from it. I actually quite like its accessory. It's pretty cool, unique. It's got that little spring action to it. So overall, pose is going to be low. His standability is pretty fine. Accessory, yeah, I like it. I'll give it a B. The novelty is about the same as Metal Sonic 3.0. And my favor is just an E. That's a C overall for Metal Sonic. Neo Metal Sonic. Alright, this is a really cool figure, but I know it's going to get some dings for posability. He's just so cool in his silhouette. Those 3 spikes on the top of his head. I love the cuffs on his arms. Some people have been saying that he falls apart easily. Mine stays together fairly well. I've never had any problems with it. But the coolness of his design affects his posability for sure. I want to do a toy photography with him where he's shooting lightning, kind of like this Power Rangers shot I took. I love doing lightning effects in photography, but I do not like his lightning accessory. It's kind of lame. So the pose, it's gonna be low, even though he's so cool. His stand is at least high. Accessory-wise, not great, but the novelty is really, really great. And the favor, I love this figure. So I think it's still gonna rank fairly high. That comes out to a B. And that is not what I would have ranked it if it was my gut. It would be S, maybe A on my gut, but with my objective way, it's a B. All right, Knuckles. Now there's 2 different versions of Knuckles. Well, I think there's more than 2 different versions, but I have one where the arms are bent more, like in this picture, and I have one where the arms are straighter. I like the straighter one. It seems to let me add more accessories like these Sonic Adventure claws. That is all that I have available at this moment. And his posability is kind of middle of the road, and it's bad with his head because his head doesn't turn at all. But that's just kind of the nature of his design, similar to how Big didn't have a lot of posability. He stands pretty good. He's got nice big feet. His accessory is cool. I like the spring. I especially like the red spring that came with the advent calendar, so check out that video on my channel. So for his pose, it's going to be low. He just really can't move his neck, but that's just the nature of the figure. His accessory is okay. I liked it, but it's not that unique. Novelty is an F just because he's one of the core characters. They're of course going to do him. In favor, he's not my favorite. So that's going to end up as an E. I don't know. I feel like I would have given Knuckles a little bit more favor if I were to redo this. Alright, Tails. This is actually the first figure that I ever photographed with a DSLR camera. I was making foam sets for my wife for toy photography, and I wanted to do some of my own shots, so I made a lot of different Sonic things made out of foam, and the first one that I ever did was a set for Tails. Now again, Sonic Adventure stuff is on my Tails. Apologies for that, just ignore it. His posability is pretty standard. I feel like his legs are pretty fragile, so I kind of don't like that about the figure. I'm always worried about breaking it. It's cool that he has the 2 tails that can spin around. Standability, you kind of have to lean him forward a bit because his tails make him back heavy. But this accessory, now there's a lot of different accessories that have come with Tails, but this is my favorite one that I'm choosing for this rating. So the pose, he's gonna get it a B. It's alright. The tail gets you some good silhouettes. Standability is fine. The accessory is really, really cool. I love putting it in his hands. The novelty is an F because he's one of the standard ones, that's all. And the favor is D. Tails also isn't my favorite, but it's gonna end up with a C. But I'm gonna be in hot water with my wife for this because Tails is her favorite character, very clearly. Alright, Amy, once again with a Sonic Adventure hammer. Let's go ahead and take that out of her hands. That thing is so heavy and big. But this one is too light and too small. I feel like they should have gone down the route of making it light and big, kind of like the heavies. Posability is okay. Kind of like a standard Sonic. I got some good poses out of it for some toy photography. But I need to do more toy photography now that I've made Birdie. He stands pretty well. The hammer though, the paint rubs off of it. It just doesn't feel weighty. Now that I'm editing this, I realize I do this a lot with my hands for accessories I don't really care for. So the pose, yeah, you can get some good poses out of it. I give it a C. Standability is just fine. The accessory is not great. The novelty, I'm going to put low because she's a common character. And favor, she's not my favorite character. Kasif is the score here. And that's going to end up as a D. Sorry to put you so low, Amy, but I think this is where I would have put you if I was just guessing. In the near future, I'm going to be doing a review of this Amy Rose deck with really cool cards like Chaos. And speak of the devil, one of my favorite figures. I love it. He's got such a cool transparent blue. His joints feel really good to pose, but he doesn't have a whole lot of posability just because of the nature of not having a ball joint for the ankle or hands. There's just not a whole lot you can do with him as far as his pose goes. I do appreciate that they added these rotations on the wrists and the ankles. It doesn't really add much to the posability. But I get some cool shots out of him. I love this shot with the Chow. It's a really janky setup, but with a lot of editing, it came out as one of my favorite toy photos. And here he is standing pretty well. But the Master Emerald, what a cool accessory to come with it. It's perfect. So, the posability, it's gonna be low just because that's the nature of how he's made. His accessory obviously gets an S, novelty S, favor, you bet, S. So obviously he is going to end up at an S rank. One of my favorite figures. I am happy to put him as our first S rank in this video. Rouge. Everybody loves Rouge. I like Rouge. She's not the best figure though. I have some troubles posing her. At least on mine, the wings fall off pretty easily. And I often have trouble with these hip joints. It's almost like the plastic was molded too tightly and it just makes it feel like I'm gonna break the knees if I push too hard, depending on where I'm trying to grab to make that pose. I don't know if that's just my particular figure or if all of them are like that, but unfortunately, you can see even as I was messing with this, one of the wings broke off. It's easy to pop back into place, but it just doesn't feel good. Her accessory is pretty cool. I like the detail on it. I think it would look really good with a watch. It's got all these nice line details. She stands well enough, can't complain. I do like that open hand pose that she has. But the pose is going to get an E because it's just tough to pose her well. She stands fine. The accessory is pretty cool. She's not an uncommon character in Sonic, but she does have a cool silhouette for novelty. And I'm going to give her an A for favor. I really like Rouge. And that's going to end up as a B. I think I'm pretty happy placing her there. Alright. Hoovalou put together this tier list for me, and there is one thing that's common between all of the ones that y'all sent to me. Everybody rated these very low. And for good reason. Why would they make them this color? I hate it! I'm not even gonna review this. All F's across the board. I think most of you would agree. Of the three, I don't hate the look of Sonic's blue, but I'm just gonna group these together and just give them all F's. But you know what? I don't think they deserve an F. I think they deserve a G. I'm glad that I'm done talking about these.
I want that Chaos Emerald.
Eggman could be cool, but my figure at least has a lot of issues. He's kind of got a weird texture to the plastic, as if there was some kind of chemical on it that gave it a inconsistent sheen. You can't really pose his head. His knees feel a little bit broken, at least on my figure. I don't know what's going on with his ankles. I can never really get those to a good pose. He's also not the best at standing. I like the spike accessory. It's got a cool feel to the plastic, nice and soft. I'm a fan of these spikes. I got these in the advent calendar too. The posability, yeah, it's a B. It's alright. He doesn't stand super well. His accessory is cool. I'll give that a B. The novelty is a B. I like that they made him. But I just don't like the size of him, and overall he just doesn't work out well for toy shots. So he's going to get a C.
Very well. Very well.
I think that's a fair spot for him. I'm going to give him a little bit of a higher C here. Alright, Super Sonic. This was the first Jakks Pacific figure that I ever got. It was for toy photography before I used the DSLR. This was with my phone. And then at the 1-year anniversary of my doing toy photography, I redid the shot, and I think the new one looks way cooler. I thought it was a great homage to my first step into toy photography. Again, you can see how janky my setups are. I just do enough to get the elements that I need for the photo, and then build it up with different lighting passes and different effects in Photoshop. The video previous to this shows a lot of how I do these effects in Photoshop too, so if you're interested in editing your Sonic photos, definitely check that out. Here you can see I'm putting in all the different emeralds and doing some color correction. And then to do the lightning, I take just a white layer that I draw in with a glow effect. That's how I make these electricity shapes. Posability, you can get some cool floating poses. He's pretty standard in the way that he stands, like other Sonics. He stands fairly well. But I love the accessory, this cyan color. It's so deep and it's really pleasing to my eye. Posability, yeah, an A. He stands just fine. The accessory is really cool. Novelty, it's good. I love Super Sonic. And Favor gets an S, and that gives us a... I'm not going to read that one. And that ends up as an A. I would have thought S. S for Super Sonic. But alas, that's where the dice land. Super Shadow. I would definitely rank this really high, and I know some people wouldn't. Obviously, his color is not correct to the game, but as I mentioned in my last video, I don't really like pale yellows. So I don't particularly mind that he has this darker yellow that everybody else hates so much. He comes with a red Chaos Emerald. Pretty cool option if you're trying to collect them, but this is not the easiest way to get that. Posability, it's a B. Standing, just like the other Shadow figures, he doesn't stand very well. Accessory, yeah, cool emerald. Novelty, an A. And Favor's gonna get an S from me. A Bafas. Overall, that brings him to a B. Of those I surveyed, he's pretty low, but I am in good company with Malamations and YBZ, who ranked him relatively high. As I mentioned, I don't like pale yellows, so I'm not even a fan of Super Silver's design in the first place. He's got fair posability, just like the regular Silver. I like his open hand with the fists in the background. You can get some cool poses out of that. I like his little tufts on the back. He stands just fine. And a clear Chaos Emerald. Pretty cool. As we've been covering recently, I have this extra clear Chaos Emerald. That's fun. Haven't taken it out of the package yet. These three supers together, though, make my favorite display. I filmed a review of this display stand, and my wife is editing the footage right now, so stay tuned for that video. As far as the pose goes, he gets a B. You can get him in some good poses, dynamic silhouettes. He stands just fine. His accessory is cool. Novelty, you see, he's kind of a common character. In favor, I'm just not a big fan. Overall, that comes out to a C. And I don't know, I think I may have placed him as a D if I was doing this by my gut. But it is what it is. Obviously, I'm very familiar with this Shadow figure. I've made quite a few customs with it, which you can sometimes find on my Etsy store. But the base figure doesn't impress me much. Oftentimes I find that his knees feel a little bit fragile. His posing is okay. You can get some good stuff out of him. This is one of my favorite toy shots, inspired by The Matrix. I made the glass out of CG so it would reflect his face really cool. Here's another shot that I took with my Shadow Lancelot. I love the detail on the bottom of the shoes. Its standability is where he really fails. When I make my customs, I have to really angle the line of the feet forward so that he stands well. In fact, I think my customs stand better than the regular version for this reason. He really has to lean forward to be able to stand. The bumper's pretty standard. I have a ton of them. But that came in handy when I needed to make this Badnik for my Halloween special. So the pose, yeah, you can get some cool poses out of him. Standability is real rough, though. The accessory is kind of mid. Novelty, he's a common character. But favor, S. I love Shadow. Gotta give him an S. Altogether, that combines into a D. I really, really hate to put Shadow at D. I feel like he should deserve a B or a C. But here he is. Cream! This is a shot my wife took of Cream. She has some fair posability here, but we really had to mess with the ears to get them to do that jumping effect. She doesn't sit down very well, so her posability is not the greatest. The ball joints for her hands work pretty well, but the feet not so much, and the legs are really hard to pose. The tail can rotate, but it also falls out a lot on me, so I'm always worried about losing it. She just doesn't have a huge range of motion. She stands fine, though. I really like her ice cream cone accessory, it's pretty unique. So let's see how her individual features rank. Pose is an F, not great. Standability is just fine though. The accessory is cool and unique, I like it. Novelty is pretty good, she's not a common character in my opinion. But I'm not just the biggest fan. This is a 5A. I think it's French. That ends up as a D. I think that's fitting for how much I like this toy. Regular Silver. Again, he's got a lot of the same cool posability. I like the silhouette of his hand and his fist in combination. As a lot of you know, he's pretty thick. I actually don't mind that. Because I like toys that don't feel as fragile, I think I'm willing to look past that more than most of the community. I think that's kind of a continuing trend, is that I like practicality and colors that are inaccurate but pleasing to me more than the average person. Here's a shot that I did with Silver and Tails on a Sonic Forces set. This was all made out of foam and little trinkets of metal. He stands okay, and he comes with a red star ring. Let's see how he ranks. Posability? Yeah, it's a D. You can get some good poses, but not the best. Standability is just fine. His accessory is middle of the road. Novelty is low. He's a common character, and I don't really like how he's built. In my favor, I'm just not a huge Silver fan. That comes out to a D. And I feel pretty okay putting him there. Blaze! What a cool, unique figure. I love her coat. I love how she can pose her arms. They feel good. Something about this particular plastic makes her posability feel satisfying. As far as the legs go, though, her cool coat kind of gets in the way, but you can get some really good shots still. Her tail feels a bit fragile to me, so that's kind of a bummer. But I love the squishiness of this material for the coat. Here's a shot that I did when those auroras were pretty low in the sky. She's a little top heavy with her ponytail, but overall she stands without too much effort. And I love the Soul Emerald. So overall, her posability is okay. A lot gets in the way. Her standability is just fine. Accessory, I love it. It's one of my favorites. The novelty is really high. In favor, I like Blaze. I'll give her a B. Desab. Overall, she's going to get a B. B for Blaze. I'm gonna give her a high B, though. Mephiles is such a cool character. This is one of my favorite shots. I feel like I'm saying that about a lot of my shots, but he's just got so much good texture to him, and the ball joints around his ankles and his wrists just feel so good for posing. His knee and hip joints are really strong too. It doesn't feel like I'm gonna break this figure. Now, my Mephiles is a little bit dirty, both from the fireworks that he was exposed to and for me molding his head, which is coming in a future video, so mine's a little bit dirty, but it's with love. And he stands fairly well. But one of my favorite accessories is this holder for him. It helps him stay up straight and is a great display piece. I love the sheen of the purple. So overall, posability is gonna rank high at an A. He stands just fine, especially when you put him on his accessory. His accessory is an S. I love it. Novelty, S. Favor, S. And this is another one that I'm not going to read. So overall, you guessed it, S. I am happy for this to be the second S rank that I put on my tier list. Alright, this is a really unique figure, but it's not my favorite. Something about the way the joints move and the plastic that it's constructed from just doesn't feel great to me. It was the right decision. They needed to make him light because he's such a massive character, but I just don't like how it doesn't seem like the hands will rotate for me. This hip area doesn't rotate super well. I don't know if it's just my figure or not. He stands fine because he's got big feet. He's such a unique character and he comes with a cool accessory, but I just don't think he's going to rank high for a few different reasons. Here's a shot that I took of him at the beach with some chow though. Posability, yeah, he's got some cool poses, but not a whole lot of range. He stands fine. Accessory is pretty cool. Novelty is really high. He is a unique character, but he's just not one of my favorite characters. This is the first palindrome one, too. It's CSASC. And that comes out to a B. I think that's where he belongs. Alright, Sonic was going to be my last one, but you're going to see why he was not in a moment. We've seen Sonics everywhere. He's a peg warmer at Walmart. There's a lot of different versions of Sonic. His posability is pretty good. You can get some really good running poses. It's very important for Sonic specifically to be able to show him running. Using the ball joints on his ankles, you can make things look pretty good. Here I posed him with a Mario. But this is one of my favorite shots. Again, I say that a lot. This one was created by building bits of foam to make the wood, and then I set up a pool of water behind it all with this whale jumping out of it. I also use Sonic for a lot of my customs like Whisper and Trip, because he's just so common. I chose to review the accessory that is the snowboard because it's the coolest one and I had a choice. And I don't know what wave this is, but it's just so cool. Of course he has a snowboard. So, posability, yeah, he gets a B. Standability, not so good. Accessory, I love it, but it's not the best. I have a personal love for the snowboard. Novelty F, he's common. But favor B. I gotta give him at least a B for favor. He's Sonic. Badaf. And that ends up as a C. I feel kind of wrong putting Sonic as a C, but that's my reasoning. Alright, until I did this video, I did not appreciate Mecha Sonic at all. If I didn't touch the figure and I was just rating it, it would have been F tier. Because I didn't know that he could be posed this much. I always thought it was weird that his legs were bowed in, because I didn't know those were actual joints. I never played around with it enough. But now that I played around with it for this video, I am so stoked. It is one of my favorite figures. He's got great detail in all the machinery. But look at this, when you start expanding the hip joint and his armpit joint and its elbows, you can just get such cool poses out of him. Probably the best posability of any figure that I have. And he's in such a tiny package too, you wouldn't expect this. I love his blocky shape. I don't really know him from the games, but I love his design. He just looks so cool, he's so bulky. You guys know I don't like spindly characters, so Mecha Sonic is just perfect for me. The posability, that is obviously an S. I love it. He stands just fine. His accessory, as I mentioned, I like the spikes. They're not the most amazing. But his novelty is off the charts. And now, he has so much favor from me. I'm so glad I did this video so that I could actually have more appreciation for this figure. He is an easy S rank for me now. Like I said, he would have been D or E, maybe F, but here he goes all the way up to S. So here's the thing, I tried to do it objectively, but let's look at what it would have been if I was just going by my gut. Obviously Big is one of my favorites, he's going at the top. Neo Metal Sonic at the top. I think Infinite wouldn't be an S tier, but he would definitely be higher for me. Super Shadow is going to be higher. Not S, but definitely an A. Vector, I love his shape so much, I'm going to put him in A. I think Eggman would go a bit lower. Super Silver, yeah, I would definitely rate this as one of my least favorites. I think this is about where it would end up if I was going with my gut. Maybe I feel a little bad for Tails. I'll move him up. Huge shout out to Hoovalou for putting up the tier list for me to use. And also everybody who submitted their own tier lists. Hoovalou, Choppus, Malamations, Blackhorn, Sparklewolf 404, Wisp the Geek, YBZ, Flesh Grinder, Pro Tyler, Matt the Amazing, and Maxi. Thanks for watching.